I got stuff on my mouth. Is it working on Facebook? Let me find out. Watch myself chew. Why don't I see it? There I am.
Is it working on Facebook?
Okay. I can hear myself asking if it's working on Facebook. Okay. Just to go away. All right. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, now and forever. Hi. We've only met like 9 times since we started Ecclesiastes. I think this is the 9th one. Well, we're going to wrap it up today. I'm going to do the last 2 chapters. Then next week is Thanksgiving. The week after that, I'm going to be out of town. The week after that is the week of the diaconate ordination of Terrence. So we're done for the year after today. In January, you'll hear an announcement. I mean, I'll give you a estimated date when we start again. We'll start January, maybe 4th, maybe 11th, the 1st or 2nd Tuesday of January. All right? Most likely, it'll be the new deacon doing the Bible study. It'll be exciting and fresh. It won't be this old grumpy man telling you about how nothing in life has any meaning and stuff like that. He might have something a little more positive for you. But who's to say? Okay? All right, let's just jump into 11. I can only hold so long. Okay, everyone go to Ecclesiastes chapter 11. Today we're going to do 11 and 12.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And there's actually not that much to say about the last chapter. There's only like maybe 4 or 5 points I want to make. So, okay, chapter 11, verse 1. Send out your bread upon the waters, for in the long course of time you will find it. Give a share to 7 and even to 8, for you know not what evil will be on earth. All right. You want to read it again? What does that mean? What does that verse mean? Send out your bread upon the waters, for in the long course of time you will find it. What does that sound like to you? Send out your bread upon the waters. So like like feeding ducks. That's what I think of. Send out your bread upon the waters. For in the long course of time you will find it. Somehow it will come back to you. Give a share to 7 and even to 8, for you do not know what evil will be on the earth. What do we call that today? Or what's kind of a bad name for that? Yeah, what's a bad name for that? Karma. You ever hear about people saying about karma? He's saying, do good because, eventually like something good will happen to you in the end, right? Give a share to 7 and to 8, for you do not know what evil will be on the earth. As in, like, maybe tomorrow you're going to need the help. You do not know what evil will be on the earth. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Help people out now, and then tomorrow it'll sort of come back to you. Now, why am I kind of picking on karma? Well, there's a couple of things that I think are a little bit imprecise with it. I don't think it's like this like satanic thing, but there's a couple of things that are not quite, let's say, Catholic about that idea. One, it's generally described as impersonal. It's kind of this mechanical thing that just kind of built into nature. It's not God seeing you, and because he sees the goodness of your heart, he's sort of blessing you for the goodness of your heart. There's no sort of personal God involved in karma. It's just sort of, you do good and then the universe will reward you. Well, the universe is not really a person. The universe is just like a bunch of crap, like kind of all flying through space, right? So that's one issue with it, that it's impersonal. Another issue with it is And I actually, this is sort of this also shows a kind of imperfection in Ecclesiastes itself, that it might not work out that way. You know? All right, you're going to do good in the world, and maybe you're going to really help a lot of people, and then maybe you're going to run into a bad time, and you're going to need their help, but I don't know, it's maybe a 50-50 chance they'll actually help you back. So there's no guarantee. So the thing that's sort of incomplete about it is the blessings that we get for doing good deeds are not always going to be earthly blessings. Just because I do good to others doesn't mean that they're going to do that to me. The commandment is sort of the commandment that Jesus says, do good to others, treat others the way you would want to be treated. He doesn't say treat others well and they will treat you well. That's not at all true. If anything, it might even kind of be the opposite. Like kind of the nicer you are, the more selfish people might take advantage of you. You know what I mean? So here, he's not sort of thinking about that part of it, though that's exactly the kind of thing that Koheleth would think about. Here he's saying, you know what? Just sort of do good, help people out. It might even be as simple as they'll owe you a favor later, and you can call them on that favor. It might be as simple and kind of concrete as that. And you know what? That's pretty good advice. What's the opposite of that? Maybe it's not as sort of open-hearted as Jesus saying, well, just do good and then don't expect any reward. It's not as good as that, but it's better than screw everybody and just take whatever you can. At least he's telling you to do good. And this book, and Koheleth, the author, that's pretty good for him. You know, he ends up coming to a pretty moderate place in most of. He doesn't quite get like a Christian full-hearted message, but he is a good sort of important corrective to a purely selfish attitude towards the world. Remember in the earlier chapters, it was never about. He always was warning against just gathering a bunch of money and holding on to it. You know, he doesn't quite say give away all your money and then like live as a, you know, like go become a Franciscan or something. He doesn't get there, but at least he says, you know what, enjoy your money while you have it, which means spend it, which means at least it'll get in the hands of others some way. Here he's saying a little bit more than that. He's saying, give some of it out. Even though it's just for a kind of worldly thing, some of it will come back to you. All right, good. If the clouds fill, they will empty out rain on the earth. And if a tree falls in the south or the north, the place where the tree falls, there will it be. He who watches the wind will not plant. He who gazes on the clouds will not harvest. This is another interesting phrase. Let me read this again. He who watches the wind will not plant. He who gazes on clouds will not harvest. The clouds fill, they'll empty out rain on the earth. If the tree falls, that's where it's going to fall. What's he saying? Don't be so anxious and worried about what's going to happen tomorrow. You do not know what evil will be on the earth. Yeah, tomorrow there might be an earthquake and all of our houses might get swallowed up into the ocean. People have been like waiting for that in California for decades. I remember being a little kid and saying, oh yeah, California, like in a couple of years, it's just the San Andreas fault. It's just all going to fall into the ocean. Remember that? That's something they used to say about California. And he's saying, yeah, that might happen. So what? You should still do good. Because you knowing or not knowing about it, you worrying or not worrying about it, it's going to happen anyway. And he who watches the wind will not plant, and he who gazes on the cloud will not harvest. If you're just worried, if you're watching the wind, oh, is it going to rain tomorrow or not, whatever, while you're doing that, your work is not going to get done. So stop worrying about trying to tell the future and just get your job done. And then if earthquake swallows everything, all right, then earthquake swallows everything. Then we'll figure it out then. You know? All right. Why is that kind of helpful? What do you think maybe in his time, and maybe in our time too, would he be fixing? What's this correcting? What attitude is this correcting? Maybe some of your cousins are into it. What is it?
I said worry.
Worry for sure. What else though? What could worry about the future cause somebody to do or to try out? What is it? Betting. Okay. Yeah, that's one thing you could do. Okay, and trying to be secure with money. Drugs to sort of like, ease the pain. There's something else. What is it? Say it again.
Euphoria.
Euphoria. Okay, yeah. No, the thing I'm thinking of is something else. Even was way worse than any of these things.
Oh, wow.
Witchcraft.
Oh, I was thinking of.
Right? People kind of are into this. They're like, oh, I'm going to do this or that. And I have no idea what the hell people do. I do not want to know. But sometimes people come to me and like, oh yeah, there's like, they'll do this little thing and it's this weird curse or I don't know what the hell it is. And I really truly don't want to know because it creeps me out. Because either it's like just the dumbest thing in the world or it's satanic power. Either way, I don't want to know about it, you know? But they're worried about the future. They're going to try to control the future or control other things that are outside of their control. Oh my gosh. So now with that in mind, knowing that early cultures did that, just like some people still do it today, he's saying just do your job. If the freaking tree falls tomorrow, it's going to fall, whatever. Okay. Isn't that a happier life than trying to control everything and doing witchcraft and selling your soul so that you force somebody to, I don't know what, fall in love with you or sell you their business or something like that? No, just do your thing and then whatever happens, happens. You know? As you know not the path of the life breath into the limbs within the full womb, so you know not the deeds of God. Now we have God here. This is like, I don't know, the fifth or sixth time he's even mentioned God in this entire book. The way that you don't know, this is kind of poetic, you do not know the path of the life breath into the limbs within the womb. You do not know how life begins in the womb. You have no idea how that works. We have some like sort of mechanical understanding of how it happens, sort of the sperm and the egg and all that. As you don't know how that happens, like you don't know what God's going to do. In other words, let God do his job and you do yours. And don't try to do God's job for him. And don't think that if I only worry just a little bit more, maybe something will happen that I want. It doesn't work that way. It works quite the opposite of that way. You're just breaking yourself, trying to become something that you're not. Be yourself, be a human being, and do your job as a human being. Good? Okay. Let me see if I missed anything before. I got that. Okay. Verse 6. You do not know the deeds of God who does everything. In the morning plant your seed, and in the evening let your hand not rest, for you know not which will be fit, this one or that, or whether both will be equally good. You know what this is? In the morning plant your seed, and in the evening let your hand not rest. So if you were planting seeds in the morning, what would you do in the evening? I don't know, maybe sewing, like weaving baskets, sewing cloth. You know what this is? And even the commentator here is saying the same thing. This is about diversifying your income. That's all it is. Plant your seeds and then like do some other job in the evening. You're sitting around anyway, whatever. You're going to talk to your friends. Might as well weave some baskets you can sell. And then you do not know which will be fit, this one or that, or whether both will be equally good. Like maybe the seeds aren't going to like turn into plants and bear fruit, but at least you have the baskets that you were working on. That's all. Very simple. Diversify your. I don't know what a portfolio is, but I hear that those words come together. Diversify your income. Do I do that? I don't take this advice. I just put everything into Doge. I'm just kidding. And light is sweet, and it is good for the eyes to see the sun. Should man live many years, let him rejoice in all of them. And let him recall the days of darkness, for they will be many. Whatever comes is vanity. Rejoice, young man, in your youth, and let your heart be merry in the days of your prime, and go about the ways of your heart and what your eyes see. But know that for all these God will bring you to judgment. And remove worry from your heart, and take evil away from your flesh, for youth and the time of vigor are vanity, are mere breath. Okay, those all sort of are repeating the same theme. If you're having a good time, if you're having a good year, if you're having a good week, enjoy it. But remember that God is going to judge you, so don't enjoy it too much. You know what I mean? Okay. And if you're not having a good time, enjoy that as much as you can too. Remember, that was one of the first things we said earlier, was like chapter 1 or 2. Not really enjoy it, but be present. Let it be a part, like embrace it. You lost a loved one? Okay, be there for whoever's left. You're at a funeral and you're sad? Good, cry it out. That experience is part of life too. And experience it and do it with all your heart. Does that make kind of good sense? So if you're young, enjoy your youth. And let your heart be merry in the days of your prime. But know that God will bring you to judgment for everything, so don't cross any lines. Enjoy it, but don't sin. Right? If only. Okay. Remove worry from your heart, take evil away from your flesh, for youth and the time of vigor are mere breath. What does this have to do with the worry? Well, if he just said, or if he sort of is implying, when a bad time comes, embrace that too, then do you guys kind of see how like that's just a little bit less of a reason to worry? Oh my gosh, what if something happens to my parents? Then you'll go to their funeral and you'll cry and it'll suck. You're not going to be the first one person to bury their parents. God forbid, it's sad. Thank God my parents are still around, But that's going to happen to everybody one day. We're all going to end up, and this is another like common theme in Ecclesiastes. We're all going to end up in the grave. And that'll be a sort of time of life too. That's a part of life too, is your own death. Therefore, if that's a guarantee, if there's no stopping that, don't worry about it. And again, this comes up every few weeks as we're going through this book. By worrying about it, you're wasting the time that you have with the people that are all going to die. And you're wasting your own life, which is, on this earth at least, going to end at some point. Don't waste it worrying. Why shouldn't you waste it worrying? Because you know for a fact it's going to end. And worrying is not going to stop that. Do you guys see all these ideas kind of tie together? Okay, good. This is a good way to sort of wrap up the book because it brings a lot of the threads are kind of coming together here.
You're at number 10, right?
Yeah, I'm just finishing chapter 11.
Mine says, put evil from thy flesh.
Take evil away from, that's where after that. Remove worry from your house. Remove worry from your heart and take evil away from your flesh.
Mine says anger, and believe me, if you worry enough, you will be angry.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's fair. Worry and anger do have some similarity.
Just keep
Yeah.
incessantly worrying. It just eats you up into anger.
All right. I think I've been there before. So that's chapter 11. So far, so good? Any questions? Good? Okay. Chapter 12. And recall your Creator in the days of your prime, until the days of evil come, and the years arrive when you will say, I have no delight in them. Until the sun goes dark, and the light and the moon and the stars, and the clouds come back after the rain. So how's he wrapping up this book? Oddly enough, and this is a little bit odd because he hasn't really done this a lot, he's wrapping it up with God. Recall your Creator, God as Creator. I kind of want to go back to the beginning and see if there's some hint that we're going to see this. Because the beginning, let's go back to the beginning. The words of Koheleth, the son of David, king of Jerusalem. Vanity of vanity, all vanity, what gain is there? Yeah, when was the first time we ever even see God? Chapter 1, verse 13. And here's the verse we get God first. It is an evil business that God gave to the sons of men to busy themselves with. Okay. And here he's saying, recall your Creator. He's not using the name God, but Creator must refer to God. Recall your Creator in the days of your prime. So he's kind of continuing something from a few verses before. In the days of your prime. Okay, that's most of you. Okay, it's not me anymore.
Not me.
Not her anymore. Okay, I'm officially middle-aged, so I'm not. I don't know. I guess I don't know if I'm. I don't know when prime is. When is your prime? When's prime? 30s.
I'd say 30.
30 is the new 20.
Yeah.
40 is the new 30. What's 42?
I say prime is being in health.
Prime is being in hell.
In health. Health.
Health. Okay.
Health.
I was like hell.
No.
That doesn't sound. Being in health. Okay, no.
Health.
Therefore, if that's the case, I've never been in my prime. So, recall your Creator in the days of your prime. I want to reflect on that for a second. Why does he need to command that?
What is he what?
Why does he need to command that? Recall your Creator in the days of your prime.
Because you're nothing, really, and God is everything. If
Wrong.
If you don't
Wrong.
realize where you
Wrong.
are.
Somebody else. Yep.
I think it's more so, when things are going great in our life and we don't have any agony, we tend to forget to praise God.
That's what I think.
Where we came from. And just
Yeah.
the basics.
Yeah. So in your prime, if things are going great, well, who cares about God? Right? And he's saying, no. Recall your Creator in the days of your prime. And I like that he's using specifically Creator. God is sort of more generic. Creator. If you're in your prime, who made you? Who gave you this world that's going so well for you? The Creator did. And recall him, think about him. And it's a command because it's not always that easy to do. It's easy to get distracted with all this cool stuff that's happening to you. In other words, it's really easy to complain when things are bad to God, and it's really easy to forget to thank him when things are good. And he's saying that sort of imbalance is there's something unjust about it. Why? Well, until the days of evil come. Because what's imbalanced about it? Well, again, he's kind of going back to this, it'll come around to bite you in the ass at some point. It's not about the sort of abstract injustice. It's, look, at some point you're not going to be in your prime anymore. Now, I'm going to make a little comment on this. Well, you know what? No, I don't think I'm reading into this. Let's read another couple of verses. Until the days of evil come, the years arrive when you will say, I have no delight in them. Until the sun goes dark, the light and the moon and the stars and the clouds come back after the rain. And then there's this long sort of litany. And the maids who grind grow idle, for they are now few. And those who look from the casements grow dark. And the double doors close in the market. And the sound of the mill sinks down. And the sound of the bird arises. And the songstresses are bowed. Of the very height they're afraid. And terror is on the road. And the almond blossoms. And the locust tree is laid. And the caper fruit falls apart. All these things sort of that have to do with the city. All these little shops are going to close. These things are going to stop functioning. Apparently there's a whole history of interpretation of these verses that say that he's being symbolic, and those are all these, each one of these verses represents a body part that's going to stop functioning. So, for example, those who look from the casement, verse 3, those who look, that would be the eyes. So your eyes go dark. You're not going to be able to see as well. And the sound of the mill sinks down. So your ears you're not going to hear as well. Right now, I can't hear as well as I used to a couple of years ago. And I don't go to loud concerts. I don't know what's happening. I'm just going deaf. I'm not upset about it because that means I don't have to hear as much about people, of what people are saying. But did you know this? I saw this or read this somewhere. From the time you're an infant, literally an infant, a few months old, you start losing your hearing. And so when you're 5 years old, you can't hear as well as you could when you were 3 years old. And when you were 10, it's not just when you're older you start losing your hearing. It might happen more rapidly then. But there are pitches and sort of frequencies that you can hear when you're really young that just a few years later you don't hear anymore. Do you know that? Yeah, that's a fact. So it's not just me that's losing my hearing. All of you are.
So my question is, what about the baby in the womb? What do they hear?
Yeah, I don't know. But I saw this. Apparently, so I saw this video. They were doing testing the little kids, and they were playing these pitches that no adult in the room could hear, and the baby was just looking left and right whenever the pitch was going. So yeah. So the sound of the mill sinks down. The sound of the bird arises from so I don't know if it's kind of reading into it, but either way it could work, because why should you give thanks to your Creator even while you're in your prime? Well, I think it's both. Both, your body is going to fall apart. I'm going to talk about what the connection between recall your Creator because your body's going to fall apart. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But it's both because your body's going to fall apart, but it's also because your city is going to fall apart too. And there's this sort of funny parallel, at least if this tradition of interpretation is right, between the city and the individual person. There's something sort of, one symbolizes the other. And that's another kind of funny parallel between this book and Plato's Republic that I mentioned a few weeks ago. In Plato's Republic, the exact same thing happens that this interpretation of Ecclesiastes is doing, that each individual person, the soul, is sort of like a city. And the city, the soul has a ruler, which is the reasoning power, and it has the sort of military force or police force, which is your anger and your spiritedness. And then it has sort of the lower classes, which is your desire for food and sex and stuff like that need to be governed. So there's this thing in Plato. Here, he's not really concerned with that stuff. He's saying, recall your creator, because you're going to fall apart, but so is the city. Now, I kind of want to take each of those in turn. Man is going to have his everlasting house. I'm on verse 5.5 now. Man is going to his everlasting house, which is death, the grave. And the mourners turn around in the market. Okay. What does this have to do with God and recalling God? Because when you rejoice in your prime and you have fun doing like skateboarding or whatever you kids do these days, okay, and you have fun dancing and listening to music and maybe playing music, your back is going to start to hurt doing that in a few years. I promise, okay? And your fingers are not going to be as nimble as they were when you play the guitar in a few years, right? So that means if that's all that you're enjoying, in a few years you're going to be really disappointed. And you're not going to be able, you're going to sort of be just sad all the time because the stuff that made you happy is gone now. Okay. I thought of a good example of this just now. There's a poet, an English poet from 100 and something years ago, 150-ish years ago, maybe more, I don't know, whatever. Lord Byron. Anybody into poetry? Lord Byron's poems in his youth were all like, he's a great poet, but they were all like fairly erotic. They were about sex, having affairs. These beautiful women, he would write these great poems about how beautiful this woman was and comparing her to whatever, all these things in nature. Later on in his life, though, he wrote some very, very dark poems, some of the darkest poems you could ever read, about how life, just everything sucks and everything's terrible. Why? Well, I mean, dude, you invest everything in sex, at some point it's not going to happen anymore for any number of reasons. And if that's all that made you happy and that's taken away, what are you going to be left with? So why now? Similarly with the city, San Diego is just great. All these, great, like you can go and walk on the beach and you can see all these great sights and you can go to the zoo or whatever, and all these stores and shopping and whatever. Well, at some point, either your money's going to run out, you're going to have to move somewhere else to like some horrible place like Phoenix or something like that. Okay. And there, the city's not going to be so fun. Or the city itself is going to rot. Like no city has lasted forever. I mean, there was a time in the 1940s, every list of the best cities in America included Detroit. And then it had its rough days. It's getting better now, thank God. But like you drive through any given neighborhood in Detroit right now, I don't know, 4 out of 10 houses are going to be completely gone. Another 4 are going to be like, windows are going to be closed off with wood, and there's going to be a bunch of like crackheads inside. And that was a world-class city at some point, not that long ago. San Diego, same thing could happen to San Diego. Nothing's stopping that. You guys remember San Francisco 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago? 10 years ago, before I was a priest, or when I was like just moved here, San Francisco was like a place to go. Now, you guys know what it's like now? Have you been there recently? It sucks.
I would not want to go.
It's terrible now. There's just like garbage everywhere. It's like, and it's still extremely expensive, oddly enough, but like, So whether it's these bodily things or it's within sort of these communities that seem so great, whether it's the city itself and it's being rich or even the community itself, all those things are going to go away. Who isn't going to go away? God. If even in your prime, you give some of your heart to that, and you get into the habit of enjoying God's presence and reflecting and recalling your Creator. If you could enjoy, he's not saying don't have fun and don't enjoy your city. He said, but also, even in the day of your prime, recall your Creator. If you can invest some of your heart there, that investment is going to really pay off, because everything else is going to go away. But that developing habit of actually being happy in God, that's never going to go away. Whereas everybody else will, everything else will. Whether it's, your own youthful pleasures, or another person, we already talked about losing family, or the city itself. I mean, the entire country could, who knows? A couple of bombs and the country's gone. You know what I mean? Whatever it is. So he's saying all these things are going to happen. They are going to go away. But what's he implying, though? Something about your heart isn't. It's permanent in a way that these other things aren't. So he's sort of implying, invest this permanent thing, which is your heart, in something that's permanent, who is God, rather than in something passing, which is everything in the world. I don't know much about investment. I make jokes about Dogecoin or whatever because I see it on Twitter. But I think a lot of things go up and down in their value. But they're what's an investment that's just really solid? It's never going to go down. It might not go up 20% in a day, but what's an investment that's really
Gold.
Yeah, gold, right? You're not going to make a ton of money on gold, but you're never going to lose any money on gold. Whereas everything else, even real estate, even California real estate goes down. Some maybe, somehow. Does that make sense? So I guess God is like the gold investment. It's never going to go down. It's only going to go up. It might not go up in such an exciting way as other stuff will, but it's always going to be there. What is it?
It just won't go.
It just won't go away, though. Exactly. And I think in addition to that, it does go up. When you really invest in your relationship with God, what does that mean? It means pray, but it also means enjoy praying. Don't just, it's just this chore, I got to get it over with. Okay, I guess I'll check off the rosary for today. No, relish that time. Make it a time you look forward to. Turn off all the crap and just kind of enjoy that silence for a second and just kind of be there. And go to the chapel. We have a nice chapel. We go to the church or whatever and just kind of relish that moment. Take a deep breath. Have that kind of quiet time. Nothing can ever take that away. Nothing. Your legs could be broken. You could lose everybody and everything in your life. You could be homeless and you could still have that quiet moment. You see what I mean? That's a good investment. Okay? Now let's see where this is going. Until the silver cord is snapped, the golden bowl is smashed, whatever you want to symbolize these things as or not. And the pitcher is broken against the well, and the jug smashed at the pit, and dust returns to the earth as it was. Speaking of the Creator, now he's basically quoting Genesis. Dust returns to the earth as it was. And now this is a shocking verse. And the life breath returns to God who gave it. This is Genesis image. This is dust, which is God made our bodies out of dust, and then he breathed life into it. The life breath, so the dust, your body will return to the ground, but your life breath will return to God. This is a really interesting thing. You don't expect this out of Koheleth, because it seems to be implying the immortality of the soul, that your soul is going to go back to God. Now, it seems to be coherent with what I was just talking about. If this is true, that the soul is going to go back to God, that after we die, somehow we're going to be reunited with God in our life breath, soul, whatever you want to call it, spirit maybe, whatever you want to call it, then we better invest even more into that. It makes even more sense to invest in that relationship with God. Because over there, on that side of existence, or whatever you want to call it, that's all there's going to be.
That's right.
Okay? Then, vanity, said Koheleth, all is vanity. All of this is vanity. Okay? Now, traditionally, or not traditionally, sorry, apparently, according to scholarship, strong consensus of scholarship, is that's where the book ends. But Ecclesiastes ends, verse 8, and then this last little chunk, couple of verses, it's only like 4 or 5 verses, this was written by a later author and sort of attached to it. That seems okay to me. It actually kind of seems like a nice place to end right there, the book. Let's just look at these other verses and see what they might mean. Yeah.
So earlier, so life breath, that refers to spirit or the soul, but then when he says just breath, that refers to vanity.
Okay, you have my translation, right?
I have this.
That's why I didn't say that out loud. Robert Alter, this is one of the reasons, the one real glitch in this translation that I found is he translates what most of your books have as vanity as merest breath. I don't like that because it's a totally different word than life breath returns to God. It has nothing to do with it. And exactly, it makes you think, oh, is there some connection? That's only an accident of the translation.
So when he says life breath and nearest breath, the same thing. It's supposed to be the same.
They're not the same
No,
thing.
it's not supposed to be.
Yeah,
Okay, that's
they're different words in Hebrew. Robert Alter, he has an argument for why he translated it as merest breath, but it has these implications. In fact, the very first week, that was a criticism that I made. Breath is something that comes from a living thing, whereas vanity, it just means like pointlessness. It has nothing to do with life or otherwise. So otherwise, I like this commentary. I think it's pretty good, and the translation's fine. But that very kind of central word, I'm not sure it's the best translation. I think vanity is probably better. Okay, good. Thanks for bringing that up. Bringing that up. Okay, verse 9. And more than being wise, Koheleth further taught knowledge to the people, and weighed and searched out and framed many maxims. Gosh, there was something I was going to say earlier and I forgot about it. Let me see if I can remember it. No, it was something. Yeah, that's fine. Gosh, and it was like kind of a funny story too. Oh no, this is an interesting story. Sorry, let me just tell the story because I thought about it. I took this physics class when I was doing my doctorate coursework, and I was doing some philosophy of science stuff. So let me take a physics class. So I took this physics class at Berkeley. This is funny. You like this? And why are you laughing at me?
Because I had physics.
Oh, okay.
I know how tough it is.
No, so I was taking this class, and then the professor, really nice guy. I used to talk to him after class. He's just really open-hearted, good dude. And he would draw the thing we're trying to measure or whatever, and his drawings were amazing. Like he wouldn't just draw like a stick figure dropping a ball and you had to measure how fast the ball was dropping or whatever. He would draw like the tendons on the arm and like the face. And finally somebody raised their hand and they're like, "You're really good at drawing." He's like, "Yeah, I wanted to be an artist when I was younger. And I was like gonna go into art school." And then they're like, "Why didn't you? Why did you do physics instead?" And he said, "Because doing art is contingent on your hands working. And at some point they stop working. Like your physical hands, you're just not able to draw as well as you used to. They start shaking, you can't hold things as well." And he's like, "I didn't want to make a permanent decision about my life on something." So it's just very much what Koheleth was kind of saying. So instead I did something of the mind. It doesn't last forever, but it lasts longer. And if my mind goes, I'm not going to care whether I'm working or not. Whereas if I invest my entire life and career into how well my hands work, you know what I mean? So I just thought that was interesting. It really kind of follows a similar kind of message here. Okay, sorry. That was the story I thought of. Okay. More than being wise, Koheleth taught knowledge to the people. Okay. This is another philosophical topic that comes up in ancient literature of the difference between being a contemplative or a wise person. Let me say it more precisely. There's the difference between the act of contemplation and the act of teaching. So let's pretend, for the sake of argument, that I'm a wise man. I'm not, but let's pretend that for the bit. Okay. It's one thing for me to sit and read and think about and understand and contemplate some truth. That's one activity that I do. It's a different activity for me to come into Bible study and to tell you guys about it. Those are two different things. Okay? One of them is entirely pleasant. Contemplation, just sitting and thinking and reading. What do people do when they're on vacation? When everything else gets boring and whatever, what do? You sit on the beach and you read. Right? And you read a book that nobody cares about that just because you want to read it. That's what contemplation's like. Okay? You just think about stuff because you feel like thinking about it. No consequences. Nothing is going to come. You're not going to ever make $1. You're never going to have to teach anybody. You're never going to have to talk to anybody. No book report at the end. You just sit and read just because you feel like it. Or if you don't like reading, you just sit and just look at the ocean. You're never going to have to analyze it. You're never going to have to measure it or make money off it. You just sit, right? Isn't that what you do? You just sit and listen to music, not because you have to write a review on the album, just because you want, right? That's contemplation. Sharing what you get from contemplation with others, that's teaching. That can be fun, but it's also labor. Believe it or not, that idea is there. It's there in Aristotle. It's a big thing in Aristotle. It's a big thing in Plato. You know a little bit about Plato? The cave analogy? The whole thing with the cave, there's people stuck in the cave and they're living in this world of illusion, and some people get out and they're the philosophers and they see reality. Well, some philosophers have to go back in the cave sometimes. And that's a drudgery and that's a pain in the butt. And ruling, so teaching is one thing, and then ruling is even worse. So being in charge of stuff, that's absolutely the worst. Koheleth is all three. He's a contemplative. He sees these deep truths about reality and human life. He's a teacher. That's sort of like what this book is, these sort of his teachings. But what's the first verse say? First verse of the book. The words of Koheleth, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. So he's also a ruler, which shows that he has a very sort of wide soul. But if he's a wise man and he's contemplative, what he would want to do is sit and read and think and maybe pray. Maybe if he's in a good mood, he'll feel like teaching people. But ruling, being in charge of stuff, no wise man wants that. Nobody who knows what the hell they're getting into would ever want to be in charge of anything. Which is, why am I kind of pushing that? Because the irony is people are fighting for that. They're fighting for rulership of all kinds, even within the church. You know, it's this funny thing, like vocations, callings to like the contemplative life, to like monasteries or convents where like all they do is just sit and pray and contemplate. We're just very stupid because like we should all be flooding into those places. I don't even know what the hell I'm doing here. I should be in one of those places just praying all day. However, for whatever, I feel like God called me to this life of service, probably because I couldn't handle that all day long. I don't have the discipline and the holiness for that, but whatever. But those vocations are drying up, at least in many cases, not in all cases. Where there are all kinds of vocations, where do we never see a vocations crisis? Bishops. There's always enough bishops, okay? Even with parish, there could be a priest crisis of vocations, but there's always plenty of callings to the episcopacy, which I don't get. Why would anybody want that? Isn't that terrible? I feel sorry for our bishop. He has this big, huge diocese. It's half the United States. All these people, all these different parishes, they're all spread around. You have to worry every freaking thing that happens. Somebody calls him and complains. Why would anybody want that? You know what I mean? I'm ready to retire right now. You guys laugh like I'm joking. I'm really not.
You can't.
I can and will.
No,
I wish.
you cannot.
Anyway, so what this final narrator is saying is Koheleth had this wisdom, but he also had the love to actually teach others. I don't have either of those. I barely know anything, and I definitely don't want to teach anybody anything, right? Okay. So I just want to show you, Koheleth is a lot better than I am.
You want to be ruler?
I definitely don't want to be a ruler. At least I have that wisdom. He weighed and searched out and framed many maxims, parables, whatever you want to call them. Koheleth sought to find apt words and wrote honestly words of truth. All right, that's pretty good. He sought for words. That's a good part of writing. Who's a writer? And who has to write for work or anything, even if it's like boring stuff? No? We don't have enough Chaldean writers. A couple of people kind of write. So, manuals, okay.
Computer manuals.
Oh, that's terrible.
For other engineers.
What a horrible job.
Oh,
You had to write computer manuals?
yes,
Oh.
got so they could run their programs after I wrote them. Yeah, it was fun.
I'm really sorry.
Yeah, and one guy sat there and I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "I did what you said, but it doesn't work." I said, "Because you have to press enter." Oh my God, it was like,
Okay, so writing, a lot of writing has to do with finding the right words. And he's just kind of saying that he sought to find apt words, and he wrote honestly words of truth. Anybody who's a writer, the biggest obstacle to good writing is people trying to write well. Do not try to write well. Write honestly. Just, what are you thinking? Write that down. Like if somebody, I don't know how to say this. Well, say what? And then they'll tell me what they want to say, and I'll just do that. You know, the things that you just type that out. That's how you get, because I have to have grade papers, and all my students have to write for me, and they're all nervous. And they'll come to me, I want to write on this, and they'll tell me like this topic, and yeah, just do that. Just take that and put it on paper. That's good writing. Good writing is not, I have to find this sophisticated, fancy word and look in the thesaurus. You're not in 5th grade anymore. You don't have to you're not impressing anybody. Just be honest. You're going to end up being a good writer. Okay. The words of the wise are like goads and like nails driven in from the composers of collections given from a certain shepherd. So they're like nails. They sort of like, I think nails driven in is like they sort of fasten things. They hold things together. Good words, good writing holds things together. And more, okay, now, this is the best way this book could end. I love how Ecclesiastes ends. More than these, my son, beware. Of making many books, there is no end. Don't write too many books. And much chatter is weariness of the flesh. Don't write too much and don't talk too much. Isn't that a great way to end a book? You know what? I've been talking too much. Bye. I shouldn't write too many books. Bye. Peace out. The last word, all being heard. Fear God and keep his commands. For that is all humankind. That's all of life. Fear God, keep his commands. Since every deed will God bring to judgment, for every hidden act, be it good or evil. This last judgment. Again, implying immortality in some way, some kind of quiet way. Okay. Now, how does the book end? With sort of piety. Look, I can't tell you everything about God or even everything about life. I told you what I know, and I'm going to shut up now. What's the opposite of this? A podcast. Why is a podcast the opposite of this? Because a podcast, every week, whether or not you have something to say, you have to say something. It's the opposite of this. A good podcast would be like, what is it?
Chai chat.
No, I hate chai chat. It's the worst. Don't call it a podcast either, man. That's degrading. Would be somebody who just like every 6 months, he'll have like 20 minutes. Yeah, you know what? I thought of something. And he says it, and then that's it. And you don't hear from him again for months. You know? Or even worse than that is cable news. Because whether or not anything happened, they have 24 hours to fill up. You know? So what do? They're like, okay, how can we make people as anxious as possible so they watch our show? You know what I mean? All of that would fit into a lack of wisdom. When you're done talking, you're done. Shut your face and go do something else. Okay? Which is what I'm going to do right now. Okay? Any questions?
yes, what's happening in the next class? When is that occurring?
Yeah. So we're done you missed it. So we're done right now. It'll start January either 4th or 11th. You'll hear an announcement at Mass.
4th or 11th?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
They announce that from the pulpit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's when we get started again.
Strangely enough, I don't always hear that.
I know.
So you're gonna-
I know the feeling. When I see you after Mass, I'll let you know.
Do you know what book that is? Or
Nope, that'll be up to the new deacon. He'll take it for a few months, and then we'll see. Maybe I'll take it over again.
Is that one of the young new?
Yep, one of my seminarians will take over.
Oh, wow.
It'll be a lot more positive and happy than me. Maybe. Okay, so we're done. What do you guys think? Was it fun to do Ecclesiastes? What a blast. What a fun time we had.
I have a question on the
Mhm.
like the very first verse of 12.
Okay.
When it says, until the years arrive when you will say, I have no delight in them. I have no delight in what? Where's it?
Right, in the days of your prime.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that's the only plural that them could be pointing to. Days. Yeah.
No delight, like as in you're no longer in your prime, you're saying? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
And what comes afterward, it's like I don't have delight in like anything anymore, you know? Yeah.
There was a section in here where they talked about if I do something, then I'm going to get something back.
Yeah.
If I do something good. And it's something that people do with respect to God. If they bargain with Him,
Mm-hmm.
they say, if I do blah, 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 blah,
Yep.
whatever, novena, da, 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 da,
Yep.
this is what I want from you and this is what I expect
Yep.
from you.
Yeah, a novena is not currency.
Well,
You're not gonna buy it from God.
Novena,
I'm agreeing with you.
anything,
I'm agreeing with you.
know?
I'm agreeing with you. Yeah.
Anything.
Yep.
And that doesn't work.
Yep.
That's vanity of vanities.
Yep. Don't bargain with. Yeah, I mean, you know what? You know why bargaining with God won't work? Because you're like, God is the better thing here, and you're trying to convince the better thing to give you something worse in exchange for Himself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. All right. What else? What else do you want to talk about? Current events. What are you guys doing for Thanksgiving? Going home and eating a bunch of food?
Hopefully not eating vegan like you did last time. That was horrid.
I agree. Yes.
Someone asked me the other day if Catholics technically believe in karma. I know we kind of touched on
Yeah.
being a good person, not necessarily good things will come to you in this life, but how would you answer that?
I'll be honest with you. Like a couple of these things don't really have a definition. So if somebody asks me, okay, what do you think about karma? I'll just say like, oh, what do you mean? And then they'll tell me something, and I'll just like. Sometimes they'll describe it, and it's just like, no, I believe that there's a God, and that God sort of allows things to happen and sort of guides history so that certain things happen for the benefit of everybody. I'm like, oh, and if that's the way they describe it, I'll say, okay, the word for that is providence. You know, karma, if it's again this sort of impersonal, invisible thing, and it just kind of works out in this kind of magical way, I don't know. I mean, you sort of need to add a little more to it than that. It has to be. So another one that I think about, I just been hearing this recently, manifesting. You see that? I have to manifest this. So again, if it's this impersonal universe and it's just going to magically do something if you just want it bad enough, okay, hell no on that one. However, what might be partially true to that? Well, 9 times out of 10, do we get in our own way? Yeah, sometimes it's our own fault. And if we can imagine ourselves doing something, will it help us actually get off our ass and do it? Yeah. So in that way, it's not that the universe is doing anything. We're just kind of breaking through a mental barrier. Okay, just think about it that way then. I think there's something kind of right about that. But the whole, like, if you just sort of think it really hard and visualize it really clear, the universe will sort of give it to you. I don't know, man. You know why? You know why that seems unjust to me? It means because the people that sort of don't know that trick aren't going to be as happy as the people that know that trick. You know, there's something off about that. You know.
Well, there's something off about calling God the universe because
There's not God.
Because God is the creator and the universe is the creation.
That's right.
And
They don't do that. They don't even do that.
They reverse the order.
Yeah, they don't even do that. There's no God in the picture at all. It's just the universe.
Well, I understand that, but they just say the universe. But what they've done is they made God
Right.
the creation and not.
Yep.
I've heard them use, say, like the word God and energy are interchangeable. You know, is
Yeah,
always
sure.
There, you know?
Yeah. So there's a lot of. So I'll be really honest with you guys. When it comes to this sort of new agey stuff, this sort of really like out there stuff, I actually try not to be too like critical. Okay, I try to because people that are into that they really are searching for something. They're not like materialists that are just like, nope, that's it. It's just the world is just a bunch of little atoms moving around and that's it. They sort of have a sense that there is something out there that's spiritual that cares about us. And you know what? That's pretty good. They're on their way. So I'm actually I try to be very like intellectually generous to people that are coming from that end and sort of say, you know what? Yeah, there's a truth to this part and this part and this part. Have you thought about also, in addition to that, this and this and this? I try to add to it rather than be sort of critical. No, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. I'm that way to certain other groups that I think might need it a little bit better, you know. But in general, I do think it's a better way to converse with people, to sort of, let's see what we have in common first, you know, where are we at on this or that? Okay, your religion has a holy book. All right, I got one of those too, you know. Your religion has a priesthood. All right, cool, we got one of those. Your religion doesn't. Okay, well, my priests are annoying sometimes, so like, whatever. You know, see what you have in common with people, and then from that foundation, it's sort of more fruitful to have any conversations. Otherwise, you're just kind of yelling across each other, and it's never going to go anywhere. Cool. Any other little topics or anything you want to talk about?
When you say, because I talked to someone, they said to me, "Oh, my faith is more spiritual," and I thought, and then they said, "I send out energy," and I thought.
So if it was somebody like that, I would say, so we have this thing called prayer. Let me tell you about it, and I'm talking to actual God that's actually listening. It's not just this guy, and see where it goes from there.
So,
like I said,
you know,
yeah.
I was just thinking, you send out energy. It really is the opposite way. God is sending out spiritual energy.
Right, like I said, be generous where you can, and then see where it goes. Okay, good. Let's pray. Get up in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. All right, well, I'll see you at church, or January maybe, or after that. Peace out.
How come you're not going to keep teaching Bible study for the spring or whatever?
Just because I want the deacon to like practice.
Oh.
It'll be good for him. Yeah.
All right.
Deacon parents.